Greetings, everyone. This is Dale Ahlquist. I'm being joined here by Kevin O'Brien, and we are here for the very first episode of Common Sense on Tap, a members-only feature for the members of the Society of Gilbert Keith Chesterton. On tap because you can tap into it whenever you want as members, and also we can drink whatever we want. And unfortunately, all I have with me is this bottle of water.
And I have my coffee.
But
it's going to be a really, it's my Chesterton Academy mug.
Yeah, that's the important thing.
Yeah.
Okay. But so what we're going to be doing here is offering some high-level dosages of G.K. Chesterton for our members. And what better place to start than with Chesterton's all-important classic book, Orthodoxy. And so for this episode and the following 8 episodes, we're going to take you chapter by chapter, very briefly but intensely, through G.K. Chesterton's important book, Orthodoxy. And Kevin, welcome, and thank you for being part of this.
Oh, thanks, Dale. This is a real thrill. And as you know, because I said this to you in an email, I think orthodoxy is fundamental. You quoted somebody who said it's sort of the root of the tree of Chesterton, that you can trace all of Chesterton's thought really back to this book, right?
Yeah, it was a member of our local Chesterton Society in the Twin Cities who called it the trunk of the tree. And all the branches of Chesterton are connected to this book. And it's true. Every time you're talking about anything from Chesterton, somehow it comes back to a crystallized quote from Orthodoxy.
And I love how he calls it in this first chapter, the introductory chapter, a slovenly autobiography. Is that the expression?
Yes.
I mean, it is a sort of intellectual autobiography of his conversion. And it takes you along this meandering path that's really not as meandering as it might appear. And I think our plan will be in this series to help unpack it for people and show what Chesterton discovered when he discovered the obvious.
Yeah, and that's what it is. Slovenly pursuit, his elephantine adventures in pursuit of the obvious. Yeah. And elephantine. Boy, talk about a great word that Chesterton uses to describe himself. And so I guess there's the three caveats that I always give to people who haven't read Orthodoxy, and I'm assuming most of our members have. So this is good advice to give to other people. And that is that the first thing is that when you read the book for the first time, you will always stop and think, because some line is going to be just a showstopper. It's just going to be some line will grab you. You'll probably underline it, and then you will keep going. And because of that, because he has these continual show-stopping quotations, you do not get what he's talking about. You have read the entire book, underlined the entire book, and then you realize, what was that book about? didn't get it. So then you read it the second time, and then you have the very uncanny and almost eerie experience of reading an entirely different book, even though there's this evidence that you've read it before, because your own underlines are right there. There's physical evidence that you've read the book before, and yet Chesterton has somehow managed to rewrite the book since the first time you read it. He's one of the only authors who can rewrite the same copy of the book that you've just read.
That's very true. And of course, now that you and I are delving back into this book again, for however many times this has been for each of us, the other thing you find is how the different sections of the book fit together in ways you hadn't noticed. Or you'll discover, as you did, sentences that you had never noticed before. So I think, first of all, we can help point out to people the rhetorical brilliance of what Chesterton's doing and how he's writing and how he comes up with these punchlines that encapsulate a point he's trying to make. But I think what a lot of people probably struggle with, Dale, when they read this book, is the language is a little outdated for us. It's more than 100 years old. It's a little fancy in places, and it's not quite Shakespeare difficult, but it is a different way of writing, a different kind of prose. And perhaps we can lose, if we're confused by the prose, the brilliance of what he's saying philosophically, theologically, and really it's common sense. He's applying common sense to life, but he's doing it in a way that we might miss if we can't navigate the prose.
Well, you just used the word navigate, and that is a perfect word to describe what's going on in the opening chapter. Chesterton, when you start reading, you really don't even know what the book's about when you're reading it. And he starts with this parable, as it were, of someone getting on a yacht and going off to discover a new country and navigating, right? But in his navigation, he gets completely turned around and returns to England and thinks he's in some foreign exotic country and goes in and plants the flag for England and is looking at his own home as if he's never seen it before. And everything has this quality of being both strange and familiar at the same time. And he uses that parable to describe his own journey towards orthodoxy, towards a Christian understanding of the world. And he realizes that you have to be both a stranger in the world and yet at home in it in order to truly appreciate it. So he's trying to get us to see the things that we've been staring at all along, but to see them for the first time. And because it's not clear what the book is about, that is a perfect metaphor for the book. That when we're reading the book, we don't know where we're going. We don't know where Chesterton is going to take us on this ship. He's going to take us home, but everything's going to look strange on the journey.
It's also an adventure, and that's another theme he keeps returning to: romance and adventure. Penny Dreadfuls, which were boys' adventure stories. He keeps bringing that theme back up again and again in this book, and how we don't really want just safety and security in life, although those things are good. Everybody wants somehow a sense of adventure or a romance in the sense of in the exciting sense of that term. The other thing too, Dale, that I think is interesting is here in the first chapter, he has this. He says, "I offer this book with the heartiest sentiments to all the jolly people who hate what I write and regard it, very justly for all I know, as a piece of poor clowning or a single tiresome joke." And again, that's his way of being funny. But, we hear that kind of criticism of Chesterton, especially from people who don't understand him. They think he's just a kind of a clown, and that he loves paradox for the sake of paradox, wit for the sake of wit. But as he points out, that's the thing he hates most. That's a kind of sophistry, as he says. And for him to recognize that, and then in the introduction say, okay, you might hate this about my writing, but this is for you people who hate this about my writing. You'll see that there's more than just superficial game playing with words. There's something much deeper going on here.
And he does, in almost a throwaway line, explain what the theme of the book is. It's so subtle. It's comes kind of on a second half of a sentence that seems to be about something else, and people will miss it. They'll miss it. And it's really one of the most unremarkable lines in the opening chapter, and yet it is, I think, the main line and the thematic line of the book itself.
And what's that line?
I'm glad you asked that, Kevin.
There you go.
That the central Christian theology, in parentheses, sufficiently summarized in the Apostles' Creed, close parentheses, is the best root of energy and sound ethics. That's a complicated line, but let's break it down. That the central Christian theology, best summarized in the Apostles' Creed. In other words, this is Christianity, what the Apostles' Creed says. So, Orthodoxy, what do you mean by Orthodoxy? I mean the Apostles' Creed. That's what he's saying. So when we pray the Rosary, we start with the Apostles' Creed. Chesterton, astonishingly, not yet Catholic when he's writing as an Anglican, still believes in the Apostles' Creed. That's what sums up Christian theology. And he's saying, what does that do? What is Christianity? It is the best root of energy and sound ethics. In other words, the root, it is the base, the foundation of how a society should think and believe, of all ethics, of all of our moral behavior, and all of our energy, all of our purpose, all of our drive in life is best understood when it's based on Christian theology.
And I think you're right, Dale. That's a very important line, and that's the thesis in a way of the book. But when he mentions energy as well as ethics, that is an ongoing theme that you can lose sight of, because you could, if you wanted to, read this book psychologically and not theologically. And you could say, how can we, as he asks in the first chapter here, the introduction, both be at home in the world and yet not quite comfortable? That was one of the other lines that I think I had saved, which is, we need so to view the world as to combine the idea of wonder with an idea of welcome. We need to be happy in this wonderland without once being merely comfortable. And he's talking about that energy. How do you have the energy to engage life and yet at the same time be happy with the adventure and amazed at the engagement and not turn bitter or give up or lose your energy? So he's also giving a very practical and pragmatic advice for how to live and not just for how to think.
Yeah, and he's already indicated that there's going to be a balance involved, and he's going to, of course, go on to describe that in much greater detail in the rest of the book.
Okay. I can't wait for the rest of the book, Dale. The rest of the book, man.
Now I'm excited too. Again.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good. We're off to a great start as we begin the great adventure of Chesterton's book, Orthodoxy. And Kevin and I are going to combine forces for the next 8 episodes and the next 8 chapters of Orthodoxy, and we'll see you again.
Well, and the other thing, Dale, is we're going to be on tap. We're going to drink things other than coffee and water, which will make the videos much more interesting. And for the viewers, don't be afraid of Orthodoxy. We're going to help you understand this brilliant book.
Hear, hear.